Hello everyone and welcome to Crypto Night, the crypto investor channel. I'm with Colton today. Hello Colton.
Hey Boris, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the Kryptonite channel, everyone. Today we'll be talking about clawback for retail investors. So can you kind of dive into that and explain what clawback is and how this affects the market, Boris?
What's going on is we have multiple cases right now going through courts. Of course, those are bankruptcy cases. And the biggest one being FTX because they are the one where there's the most money involved. We're talking billions and billions of dollars. And then there are all the others. However, the problem, up until now, we've seen in many bankruptcy cases that there is a clawback for the insiders, people who are involved in most likely a scam, in many cases. Now, sometimes there are companies going into bankruptcy and there was no scam. It's just things went bad, management wasn't great or something. But now they're talking in more and more of those cases into doing a clawback for retail investors, people who had money on, let's say, a Voyager, Celsius, FTX, whatever. And luckily enough, they withdraw those funds before the platform went into bankruptcy. And the clawback means that the court potentially could tell these people, no, you're gonna have to return some of that money. You're gonna have to send it back. And that creates huge problems. And we're gonna go over this today. As you know, the promise of cryptocurrencies was that everything was going to be decentralized and etc. And your funds should be safe. But the problem is there are limited regulations right now, and in some cases there are no regulations. So banks and stockbrokers, for instance, are very much regulated. So it's easy on how things should happen in the case of a bank failure, even though we just saw today that the US government is going to save some of those banks, because otherwise it's a domino effect and then many companies would go out of business. So technically they only protect you up to 200,000 US dollars. European banks, they only protect you up to 100,000 euros. So it's even less. But in this case, they're going to come and try to save everybody, because otherwise there'll be Armageddon, financial Armageddon. But in the case of cryptocurrencies, there is a major lack of regulations. And so the problem is currently they're not viewed as a bank or as a stockbroker, etc. So protections are virtually none. So the general bankruptcy code applies to those platforms, which allows for clawbacks. Now, FTX is the big one that happened back in November, but there's been multiple cases in the past 2 years. It pretty much started in November 2020 with Cred, was one of the first one to go under, around 500 million in the hole, something like this. This case is still going because they have some claims against Uphold, which is another platform. Then we saw Voyager, and Voyager, it was total mismanagement. They sent millions to Three Arrows Capital, and I think it was 680 millions as a loan with no collateral. And then we saw Celsius, another one, etc. At the end, we have billions and billions of dollars that are, in claims. And the problem is sometimes they interlap each other. Voyager has a claim from Alameda Research, which is kind of the parent company to FTX. So they have a big claim that now the judge in the bankruptcy case, which is allowing apparently Binance.us to buy and purchase Voyager's assets. The judge is saying you're going to have to set aside the money in case in this other court case, the other judge rules in the favor of Alameda, Voyager will have to pay the money that Alameda is saying they owe, and it's along the lines of about $400 million. So many cases, colliding with each other, but really the biggest problem here is retail clawback. Because already it's tough enough to be part of a bankruptcy case, but in some cases you might have saved, half the money or a portion of the money, or you needed the money to pay your taxes, or you needed the money because you're like, I need to purchase a house. And now they're going to come back after you to say, oh, you need to send, 50% of that money back. So the one thing really already to remember is people are going to have to fight. Don't just let these people ask for your money back. If you were lucky enough to get some of that money out, all of it out, it doesn't matter. You should have never have to return really any of it. And for multiple reasons. The first reason is that those lawyers are gonna, have a field day going after all that money. And trust me, all they care about is themselves. They don't care about anybody else but themselves. So don't be delusional. Those lawyers work for themselves. All they care about is if we have to go after a lot more people, let's say the millions of people that are clients at Voyager, Celsius, FTX, depending on the platform, some of them had more or less customers. But if you put all those people together, we're talking millions and millions of people. And of course, quite a few of them, got out, which by the way, they can go back 90 days. So if bankruptcy filing was, let's say, on a certain date, they can go back the day before and then 90 days. So roughly it's 91 days. But that means that even if you say, oh, I retrieved my money several months before, you're not safe. If it's less than 3 months, you're not safe at all. And those lawyers, they're going to be like, great, we're going to be able to charge a ton of money. So for those who still are in the Celsius or in the FTX, and they're hoping like, yeah, but if we go for the clawback, we're going to get, some extra money. You're kidding yourself. I know the lawyers in the US. I've dealt with a lot of them over the years. For many things, we have companies in the US, and I can tell you the only thing they care about is how much they charge per hour. And the more people they're going to have to go after, the more they're going to charge. So at the end, here's what's going to happen. They're going to go retrieve 500 million, a billion, 2 billions, whatever. Out of that $2 billion, they're going to take the lion's share. And when I say the lion's share, I kid you not, it'll be more than half. So really, to the ones that are still involved in, let's say, FTX, I've never had an account with FTX, but let's say that some of you have an FTX account and still have money in it, and it's, blocked with the proceeding and all that stuff. And some of you may have had an FTX account, luckily enough, get your money out. If you let the lawyers handle it, at the end of the day, the ones who have got out will have to return maybe 30, 40, 50%, who knows, 70%. I don't know. This has still to be decided, and the judge has to make that decision. But you will have to return a good portion of the money that you saved. On the other hand, the one that still has an FTX account is going to see the money returned to him go from, let's say, oh yeah, I'm getting, a major haircut, and I'm going to go up from 40%, maybe up to 43% because they went after all these people. You're going to see peanuts. So if you think like, oh no, it's better that we do clawbacks, because you are the one stuck in it, trust me, it's the lawyers who are going to win. It's exactly like a divorce. If you want to really fight, especially in the US, the lawyers get rich. That's the only thing that's going to happen. So that's the big danger.
That makes sense, Boris. So at the end of the day, how are the end users affected with these cases? How do, the crypto customers figure out what's going on and, what are they supposed to do about it?
As you know, the big debate is on who owns the cryptocurrency that was on these platforms. And that's where things get very tricky because people are considered, debitors versus creditors. Debtors are usually the ones that the platform itself has a debt towards the creditors, which are the people depositing their coins. I think that the problem also is a lot of people have misconception. They think that my money is in a bank. No, you have zero money in a bank. All you have is you sent money to a bank. They said, great, you are one of our creditors. We'll give you, credit that, let's say you deposited $1,000 on your bank account. That's a funny word. It's not yours. All it is basically the bank recognizes they have a debt towards you of $1,000. And that's where I think that people sometimes have a hard time understanding the difference between owning something and then, being a creditor to a bank or to a crypto platform. So whenever you send your coins there, they kind of become theirs. But where it gets also kind of tricky is that how long does that ownership last? Because let's say that you were really unlucky, and that's where you see sometimes the thing with those clawbacks are extremely unfair. Let's say you hear about Celsius a month and a half before they go into bankruptcy. And at the time, a month and a half before, there was not really a whole lot of turmoil. I forgot when it started exactly, but it really started maybe 2-3 weeks before the bankruptcy happened. A month and a half before, there was nothing really bad going on, or at least not a whole lot. So a month and a half before, you deposit, let's say, 1 Bitcoin. Let's say you own 1 Bitcoin, you deposit on Celsius, and 2 weeks later, you're like, I'm making a little, earning a little money on the Earn program. And then 2 weeks from now, I need that money because I'm paying for, a down payment on a house. So I'm only going to leave it there for 2 weeks or whatever, and then I'll retrieve it. That guy, no clue what's going on, is not an insider. And they're trying to tell you now that, well, because you deposited that money within the last 90 days before bankruptcy, even if you had no idea that there was going to be a bankruptcy, well, we need to claw back some of that money because some of it is actually we own it. So it's really amazing. You deposited 1 Bitcoin for only 2 weeks, and the timing, of course, was awful. And suddenly they can ask to get it back. So once again, the agreements, it's very complicated because, you have all those terms and conditions that they make you either accept, which in some cases, if you haven't signed anything, there's also probably some debates on that, because I'm not so sure that they can prove to the court that you ever accepted any of those, terms and conditions to use the platform. But at any rate, beyond all this, if this clawback happens, which right now, it's very, very possible, especially those hungry lawyers that are going to be coming after extra fees. But really, the big danger here that people haven't talked a whole lot about that I see looming, if there are major clawbacks and we see tons of people being ruined because, they don't even have the money anymore. Or they put that money into a house and they're like, well, I don't have the cash. How am I going to pay, this clawback? This would be exactly what could have happened with Silicon Valley Bank if the government had not stepped in and Silicon Valley Bank had said, hey, money is gone, and we're even going to ask you to help us with some extra money that we don't have. You had a bank account with us, so you have to participate in our bankruptcy and give us some extra money. No one would trust banks ever again. No one would deposit a dime in a bank ever again. So the big danger here, if they do those clawbacks, it could be the end, not of crypto, but of centralized exchanges. Because once again, let's say that you have one Bitcoin and it's in your wallet, your own private wallet, Trust Wallet, Ledger, Exodus, whatever. And you do send it to Binance or Coinbase. You send it today and you say, I just need to sell it. So I'm putting it on the exchange and I am selling it. And as soon as I get my money, I'm transferring it back to my bank account or whatever, or in stable coins, and then I'll store those stable coins in my wallet. Well, if you do that, and if, let's say, Coinbase filed for bankruptcy 30 days from now, what? They're going to ask you for 30% of that one coin? That would be the end of Coinbase. It's the end of all centralized exchanges. Now, people are going to say, well, you have DEXs, you have decentralized exchanges. Yeah, that would definitely profit, and DEXs would get a big jump. But DEXs also come with their own set of drama. We just saw 3 days ago, somebody panicked with USDC, depegging. So the person had $2 million. And he said, I'm going to use a DEX to swap that $2 million worth of USDC into I believe it was either DAI or USDT. They swapped it. They didn't check the slippage. They didn't check, how much the pool really had. Usually you have to say, okay, I'm okay with a little slippage, like a 1% or 0.1%, whatever. They didn't check. That pool was nearly empty. He swapped $2 million and got 5 cents for it. There is no calling anybody. It's a decentralized exchange. That's it. You accepted the terms, you swapped, it's over. So stories like these, could make things very difficult with crypto in general. And if I was in the shoes of CZ, Binance, or Brian Armstrong for Coinbase or any of those things, I would fight this thing to death, because this is their death certificate for sure. So let's hope it does not happen, but we're gonna have to monitor very closely to see what's going on, because that means that you're never safe. That means that people can come back later on. The lawsuit, is starting now, let's say for the Celsius or the Voyager, or those cases, or it started not too long ago, recently, whatever, and they could come back, literally months, years. Those proceedings take so long. They could come back years later and say, hey, by the way, you had $100,000 at that time and you owe us 50. Give us $50,000. You're like, that was years ago and I took my money out. Yeah, but it's the law. You have to obey. So yeah, let's hope it doesn't come to this.
So quick question, Boris. Will, if you withdraw the money, would you be inclined to crawlback, or how does that work? I know you kind of explained it already, but, for the people who don't understand, if I withdrew, like you said, I have the money, I spend it on XYZ, a house, a car, my family, why am I subject to pay that back?
Well, it's... The law says, at least in the US, that you were a creditor, and that if you took some of that money out, The problem is they can claw back some of those transfers up to 90 days before the bankruptcy filing. So they look, of course, at their ledger, see all the transactions that happens and say, okay, this one, he owes us, this much. Now, of course, there are some lawyers that will say like, no, well, this does not apply. So it's going to be a big debate between does it apply or does it not apply. The problem is that there is the section 550 of the bankruptcy code that gives the judge the discretion to order the return or not, and he can decide if it's in cryptocurrency or US dollars, which creates even more problems. Because let's say, imagine you had that one Bitcoin, and let's say the judge allows it 50% back. It takes a while for things to happen, and he says, yeah, you're gonna have to return it in US dollar. And at the time of bankruptcy, the bankruptcy filing, let's say that Bitcoin was at $20,000, and that today Bitcoin is at $50,000, or let's say even better, $100,000, and you have to return 50%. So now you have to return more money than you put in. Not only that, but let's say that you took that money out. We are in April 2022. Bitcoin is worth $20,000. So you took that Bitcoin out, you sold it, you got your $20,000 back. It was yours anyway to begin with. You put it into down payment for a house. Now we are in 2023, 2024, case took a while, and the judge says, oh yeah, you're gonna have to return half in cryptocurrency of what you owe. And let's say because the thing dragged, we are in early 2024, and let's say that bull run, is happening. I mean, we don't know that, but it's very possible that it could be happening in 2024. And let's say that for some reason, it goes all the way up to 100K. So basically what the judge is ordering you to do is to return half a Bitcoin worth 50K. So you're returning twice the amount of money, more than twice of what you put in. I mean, and they're going to tell you like, oh, it's just to be fair to everybody. Oh yeah, that's pretty, that seems very, very fair to me.
Yeah.
And obviously there are different problems because those platforms had clients all over the world, but good luck trying to make people living in China, pay. I'd love to see how a US court can enforce US laws in China. I think that Chinese would have a pretty good laugh, So that means that on the top of it, it won't even be fair because there are some people that will live in jurisdictions that it will be almost impossible to apply those laws. And some others, the guy that lives in New York, the guy that lives in Texas, the guy that lives in California, I mean, for applying, of course, a court decision in the US, that's going to be a lot easier. Very easy, actually. So it won't even be fair to all the people because it's almost impossible to make one of these cases, really fair. On the top of it, what really I think is outrageously unacceptable is the fact that you have 90 days clawback for retail, for creditors, or basically the people are not insiders, but insiders, it's 1 year. That's it. One single year. You're like, okay, so if let's say a guy, let's name it Alex, and he runs a company called Fahrenheit, he basically prepares his scams years in advance, and he starts scamming people for like 5-10 years. And by the time it's done, scamming a lot of the money out, he doesn't do anything for 2-3 years. So what? He's in the clear?
Yeah.
Can't go back. He actually stole that money 7 years ago. Sorry. But you're the retail investor. You put your Bitcoin 3 weeks ago. You retrieved it a week later. Well, we own half of that Bitcoin now.
Yeah. A couple of questions.
And that's when people tell me like, oh yeah, we don't need regulations in crypto. Really? We don't?
Yeah, I agree with you, Boris. A couple of questions. I may be ignorant on, the stock market and stuff like that. But have they ever done this on the stock market? And this is kind of a two-part question. If they haven't, do you think this is their way of trying to get crypto, to not be a thing anymore? And then the last question is legally, yes, they can hit you with things, but what are they going to send you to jail? Are they going to, put you in debt? What is the legal ramifications if you don't pay or don't have the money to pay at the time?
Yeah, you're not going to go to jail, at least
yet.
Not by having a clawback.
Yeah.
But you could face potentially some jail time if you don't pay the clawback. At first they're going to give you the opportunity to pay the clawback. If you don't, there could be, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know everything about what could happen, but very easily they could seize you some of your properties. They could do different things. And once again, it depends on the country, because there are countries that will apply, U.S. laws. They're just like, have agreements with the U.S. or whatever, but there are many countries, they have no agreements with the U.S. So they're going to be like, nope, we're not going to apply anything. Or they're going to make it extremely difficult for a U.S. court to apply those laws. But once again, that's the terrible thing with the U.S. right now, between the SEC, between everything, who's going to do a crypto project, in the U.S. anymore? It's wow. It's shooting yourself in the foot. Can you imagine if they had done the exact same thing to the internet? No Amazon, no Netflix, none of those huge American companies that are today making billions of dollars. It would be terrible for the US. So all of this, it's killing. It's not killing an industry, because I don't think that any of this will ever kill crypto, but it's going to make crypto move out. It's going to make crypto go somewhere else. So the US should really start thinking about, we need to put some simple regulations, give some protections to the retail investors. Obviously to me, it would sound like, hey, no clawbacks possible for the retail investors, but let's change the law for clawbacks on insiders, the ones who run the company and knew exactly what they were doing and knew exactly where things were going, while clawback is 5 years or 10 years. That would seem a lot more fair to me, because obviously the retail investors had no clue whatsoever what was going to happen with Celsius or Voyager or any of those. The guys that were inside, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly like what was going to happen. Like we just saw again, it's crazy, Silicon Valley Bank, apparently, it has to be probably proven a little further, but already allegedly, some of the top people in that bank were retrieving their money by the millions weeks ago. Because of course they're insiders, they know what's going to happen. Once again, no one goes to jail because you work for the banks, you work for Wall Street, you're never in trouble. It's always the little guys that are going to pay, for the for everything that's broken. So really, everybody could potentially be exposed. You have to be very careful, but you have to start fighting. And especially for people living in the US, you can reach out to your congressmen, senators. People need to start making some noise, because that's the other problem is the US regulator, or especially the US government, Congress, Senate, they need to get in gear and start doing some regulations. Do exactly like the internet was done. Not a ton of regulations, because if you over-regulate, then you're going to damage the industry. But you need to have some regulations. So things like these, especially a bankruptcy case, is very clear what will happen or not happen, and you were asking me if it's something like this ever happened on Wall Street. Well, if you have a brokerage account, and something goes wrong, there are many protections for the retail investors. So yeah, they don't go after retail investors, and they try to be somewhat protected. Now, obviously, when there's a bankruptcy, you're going to lose some money. The company is bankrupt. They're not going to send you, 100% of your money back. But at least you have protections. You have some protections in bank, not a whole lot, but you do have some protections. If the bank goes, completely under whatever, at least the FDIC will kick in, and reimburse you some of your money, and you're not on the hook, for like, oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna need to send more money. We're gonna take all the money that was on your bank account, and then you need to send some more because you're a client of that bank. So you're part of, you're one of the people that's gonna have to pay. No, there are protections for that. So there is a need for protection for the retail investors. I thought that was the SEC job. Maybe I was wrong, but anyway. So yeah, that's the thing. Don't let these people run you over. I think there was a good video from BitBoy Crypto. He got really vocal, really upset. But he's right. Every time it's the little guys that come, and pays for everybody, or pays a good portion. But if people unite, it's going to be very, very difficult for some of these people to try to steal your money. So don't just accept what's happening. Fight it in court.
Yeah, my last question for you, Boris. Do you think it's necessary for, people who use crypto to get a lawyer, or to at least speak to a lawyer and, figure out what they need to do and what actions they need to take?
Well, it depends, of course, on the amounts you're talking about. Now, if you're talking about a small amount, getting a lawyer is going to get too expensive. If you have a lot more money, there are some people who had millions at Celsius, then yeah, probably getting an attorney, counsel to represent you would probably be a good idea. For those who are much smaller, like I said, the best way is to get united. So there are different groups that are getting created of people that want to get together. Maybe you had 500, I had 1,000, someone else had 5,000 on Celsius. If you all get together, you can actually hire one attorney that represents everybody. So that's probably one of the things. So I would, if you had an account with any of those, FTX, Celsius, and an ongoing case, Voyager seems like it's actually going to be done and pretty much finished. It's not completely for sure yet, but basically they're getting bought out by Binance.us, and the SEC tried to step in again. Unbelievable. But the judge, thanks God, threw them out and said, no, you're not stopping people from getting some of their money back. So they got overruled, and thanks God, looks like people for Voyager are going to get their money back rather soon. But on the Celsius case and potentially FTX and other cases, and the problem is every time you do something like this, if it happens at Celsius, you're going to give some really bad ideas to a bunch of lawyers to do it on FTX and to do it on other cases. That's the problem. As soon as they smell money, it's like bottom feeders. Remember, that's how most people call lawyers in the US.
Yep.
It's if they smell blood, they're going to rush in.
Yeah.
So don't give them an excuse to come rush in for more clawbacks on other cases and other bankruptcy cases. So
From my side, Boris, that's all the questions I have for today. But if you have anything else, please feel free to add it.
Yeah, really take action. That's really my main thing here. Don't let them take your money back. Fight for it. But right now, it's just a bit early to know if, there's a need to fight back, because decisions haven't been made in, let's say, the Celsius case. So, but it's better to start digging and investigating already now to see, hey, what can I do in case something happens and they try to do a clawback.
Thank you, Boris. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Colton. We look forward to see you on the next Kryptonite video. I hope this video helps. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. And if you like the video at the end, click on the thumbs up.